Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
I wanted to start this episode a little bit differently. It's funny, I was talking to my friend Alan Hart. I was listening to one of his episodes. He has a podcast called Marketing Today, and he was having a tough time with a guest, and I could just tell that the guest wasn't bringing it back with interesting answers. So I picked up the phone right after I listened to the episode, and I called Alan. I said, Alan, oh my God, I feel your pain. And so I want to encourage all of you, all of your folks that are kind enough to listen to Renegade Thinkers Unite, to feel free to call me up, 917-679-8852. If you like something you heard on an episode or something you didn't like, and also give me some suggestions on the kinds of people that you would like me to interview, some Renegade Thinkers that you know. So anyway, with that little introduction, I want you to meet my guest today. It's Juliette Rizkallah. She's the CMO of SailPoint, and we are going to scare the heck out of you today. I mean, we're talking about cybersecurity, and SailPoint is a really fast-growing company, which means that there are a lot of people that are very nervous about their cybersecurity. And she's been in cybersecurity for 20 years, so she knows from once she speaks. She's worked at Oracle, CA, Business Objects, SAP, Checkpoint Software. She also received an MBA from Harvard and a BA from the École Supérieure de Commerce de Paris. So yes, Juliette is French. So welcome to the show, Juliette.
Thank you, Drew. Good job on pronouncing this school name.
Yes, I have all of my accent is credit to Pepe Le Pew. So, you know, I was reading in your bio that SailPoint sales had increased dramatically in the last couple of years. So first, congrats to that. And I'm curious, what role did marketing play in that growth?
Well, I like to believe that we helped quite a bit. I joined SailPoint 2 years ago, and the company was already doing really well. And SailPoint is in identity management, which is a category that is a little bit aside from security and cybersecurity. But one of the things that we started doing 2 years ago was really kind of linking the impact of identity management in the category in which SailPoint is the leader to cybersecurity. That has increased our audience tremendously, and that has increased our awareness tremendously. From there, you know, adding on very successful demand generation plan just helped creating a lot of momentum for SailPoint.
Interesting. And what I hear when I hear that, having been in the business a long time, is what we call the FUD factor, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And those are very powerful and have been forever in the world of B2B marketing, in that you were able to say identity management is really part of a much larger category of issues, right? It's making sure that data at a company, the data is safe. I mean, when it comes down to it, right? And so in order to get people to be thinking about that, sometimes you have to scare them.
It's true, though, and I've used a lot of marketing tactics in my previous life, but when we joined SailPoint, because SailPoint as an identity management was born mostly from helping company having more IT efficiencies in their process of onboarding people, deprovisioning them when they depart the company, and some other type of heavy IT process like providing password and so forth. So the security came at a time where data breaches were at whole highs, and companies were targeted through their users, through their employees, where the credentials were stolen, and then a data breach will happen. So funny enough, I think that at SailPoint we use less of FUD because what we wanted to show is that you can empower your users and make them very protective and make IT more efficient in making them productive, but at the same time it provides also cybersecurity as well as it helps you with compliance. These three different value proposition has helped quite a bit position the company with multiple persona and audience within an organization. So the FUD was there a little bit, but I would say way less than I used when I was in network security.
Okay. So this comes down to an interesting little factoid, which is that employees and people close to the company are as likely, or I don't know what the percentage is, maybe you can enlighten us, but employees are a big source of security risk, not just in the fact that there's a phishing exposition, but that they may be involved in the problem. Right? I mean, that they may take some data with them.
Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of surveys out there. One says that in the past data breaches of last year, 81% of those were due to users, right? The human factor. So people, credential being compromised. In some case, people are victims of spear phishing, and then their hackers take over the computers, the credential and access system. But in some cases, you have pure insiders. They would actually use their legit access in the company and download data and take it away with them to do different things.
I think it's clear what you all do at this point. I love, by the way, spear phishing. I am well familiar with phishing, but spear phishing just gets right to the point. It just sort of jabs you. Let's talk about your strategy specifically. And I don't know if you can boil this down. Does SailPoint have a purpose?
Yes. Our mission is to basically enable our customers to grow securely and confidently, and that is through the power of identity. And what it means is that if you are able to manage the digital identities of your organization, you will be more efficient, more secure, you will comply, and you will be able to focus your IT resources on growing, expanding, and basically focusing on the business. And this is very critical when you look at the cybersecurity world, where the attack vector has moved to those digital identities. It is much easier today for a hacker to spearfish a human, get his credential, rather than penetrate not physically, but literally a network or a data center. So we've seen a paradigm shift where the digital identities, and that's also why you see identity management as a category getting bigger and bigger in terms of importance for security, becoming a critical aspect to protect any corporation assets and data.
It feels very functional right now, and I'm wondering where the emotional aspect of this brand is. I mean, I know you keep enable companies to grow securely, but that, again, it's very rational. And when we think about brands that we're connected with, there's a strong emotional connection to those, almost irrationally. I don't know why I buy it, but I mean, I just love them better than the others. Is there some aspect of your brand that you've been able to build that has that emotional?
I think, when you in B2B, their emotion is important, but it's a view a little bit different, right? Imagine that you are the decision maker in buying such a software. Your emotions are, am I going to make the right decision? Am I going to be able to help my company? Am I going to be able to be the hero? So the ability to tell stories of customers that have been able to do that for their company will be very appealing for our audience. And this is why we basically came up with saying the power of identity. It gives power to an IT staff, which is honestly these days fairly overwhelmed in doing all the things they need to do to enable a business and to secure it and protect it at the same time. But giving them tools that empower their user can be an emotional. And that goes back to your comment about the FUD, is that IT security professionals have been targeted with marketing FUD campaigns so much that at one point they get really numb to it. Saying you're going to be the next target victim, you're going to be the next big data breach. It's so much that they didn't listen. Everything gets numb, and they just try to focus on what they can get done in the next week. But here we had a different message. We said, listen, it's not all bad, and you need to be able to kind of protect, but at the same time do the things that you were hired for, which is to enable that business to grow.
All right. I think that's a perfect place for us to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to try to break down the branding program and what branding means in the world of B2B. So we'll be right back. Hey, it's Drew. I wanted to use this break to ask you a single question. Are you a courageous marketer? Do you have the courage to go to your board of directors and say, marketing could drive the growth of this company? We just need 3 times the budget. Do you have the courage to take the big idea that you already have and extend it internally and externally through influencers, through the media, through all of your content? If you're a courageous marketer but aren't sure how to roadmap all of this, I have a big idea for you. It's called Renegade Thinking. It's a program that we've developed and work with exclusively for B2B marketers, generally at large companies. And I want to give you my cell phone, 917-679-8852. Just text Renegade Thinking to 917-679-8852, and we can talk about how you can cut through. Okay, we're back, and my guest today is Juliette Rizkallah, who is the CMO of SailPoint, and we've been talking a lot about cybersecurity and helping employees and empowering employees to help the company actually by having secure identifications, if you will. So let's talk about, I know you've talked a lot about branding, in your marketing. I've read your Forbes articles. What does that mean in the context of SailPoint in your category? What is branding?
Well, branding is really, for me, in B2B, making your company's name the best name in that category. If you go back to where I come from, I was born and raised in France, and I grew up with my mom taking me to Chanel and Louis Vuitton stores and seeing the power of a brand. And when I later went on to study in Japan, I could see the power of that brand because my friends and family in Japan, the only thing they wanted to buy was those French brands, Chanel and Louis Vuitton. And somehow they sticked with me. So when I approach, the branding, the company I work with, what I want to do is I want them to be the Chanel of their category. I want them to be the Louis Vuitton that is coveted by every single IT security. And I think that having that as a principle has been guiding me to develop branding programs for SailPoint and other companies.
And so I get the theory. And we all love Chanel and know it well, and they've done and continue to do, extraordinary, content that is just, frankly, their videos are outrageous. What are you doing, if anything, that is what we'll just call it renegade thinking? What are you doing that really represents and helps your brand cut through?
Right. So I don't think it's a nice video, just like Chanel does, because we're in a different category. But I think what those videos that you see for Chanel and the thing that we've been trying to do for SailPoint's branding is to go back to the core of the company, understand why it was formed at the beginning by their founders, what was the mission, the purpose that they had, what type of culture that company is, and its mission. When we started a branding initiative at SailPoint, we spent a lot of time just discussing those things and being able to almost capture the essence of what SailPoint was. When you have that, and when you have in some words the emotion that the people working or founded and worked for a very long time for the company, and you are able to express that, I think the emotion that you were touching on in the earlier segment just start portraying. After that, it's all about working with a great branding agencies and creative that will be able to capture those words, capture those emotions, and put them in a format that resonate.
I think the point about starting with internal is so important and often overlooked. Several of the episodes past, we've talked about some brands have taken as long as 6 months to launch a new brand branding campaign internally and getting all the employees behind it, because there's nothing worse than you have this external, purpose-driven message, and then you call the number or you go to the website and the employees are clearly not behind it. So what did you do as you were developing this new branding? Did you have an internal launch to celebrate it?
Yes. And this was something that I mentioned to my team from right at the beginning. I said, I've seen so many great branding initiative happening, but nobody knew because there was no activation of that branding. And by activation, it means starting with an internal launch and following with an external launch. The more you get employees involved with it, and the more they embrace that branding, the more you can basically spread out the words externally when you start your external campaign. So what we did is that we had a specific day where we had multiple activities with employees. We created a team of brand ambassadors that helped us basically in each department, telling the story of the brand, bringing, brand elements to everybody. And we had our top executive involved in launching the brand and telling why it is important to all the employees. One thing that is, that I noticed in my career working in B2B is that the branding exercises are not too common like you would see in other industries. So when it happens and you involve people, they get really, really excited. I mean, it is a morale boost for employees of a company when you have a new branding and they are involved in embracing it. And this worked really as I thought it would at SailPoint. We have so many people that are part of our brand ambassador, and we have employees joining every day, and they join that program and they help us spread the word of SailPoint story, SailPoint purpose and mission, following obviously our branding guidelines, but more than happy to do so.
So you've really empowered employees. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned their top executives are involved in the rollout internally. And again, this is a huge one for CMOs. If the CEO doesn't buy in, if the board doesn't buy in, update your resume, because it's just going to be a logo exercise. And,
right.
And I really want to emphasize that as we think about branding for a moment is if you're thinking this is just new logo, new color, then you're missing the point. Because the opportunity as you described it, Juliette, is to really improve employee morale, get them excited about the company that they're working for. That's why so many purpose-driven organizations seem to outperform non-purpose-driven organizations, because the employees, they get it. And it's not about wages. It's about, being on a team that, using a cliche, is a winning team. Winning in the sense of sort of I guess we could call it the greater good of some kind or another. Let's talk about something that when you look at this and if that really cut through, something that you did that was surprising for your industry.
I think this industry, this category, I like to call it category, was a very quiet category. I came from network security with big brands making a lot of noise. And then I came into this world and the vendors are either very large vendors for which it's just one product out of a huge portfolio, or some vendors that were just, doing great, like SailPoint, but talking to a very specific audience, using a jargon that was very technical, some of which I could not even understand myself. I don't know whether, it was just common sense or surprising, but the idea was to start bringing identity management, to the level of pretty much every single professional, business users, IT, C-level, and board level, so they could understand the value. And that's why our branding exercise didn't really start with, I want to change the logo. I couldn't care less what the logo looked like, honestly. What I wanted was to change the messaging. I wanted to go away from that heavy technical messaging and open it up to multiple audience, making sure that everybody understands what identity management does. So I'm not sure whether this is very creative. Sometimes you just have to do things that need to be done to be successful. But it was probably in our industry something that has not been done. And as the leader in that category, we took the lead. We did that. We started with a transition tagline, which was identity is everything. That was a quick brainstorm with our PR agency at the time in order to be able to kind of start standing out. And funny enough, this resonated in our industry very, very well. I got emails from competitors. Competitors picked it up from themselves, which was another surprising fallout of this. But I guess that's probably what was the most interesting thing, is that suddenly people were looking at identity as something that was coming out of a shell.
The thing I picked up on is, and this is a real form of flattery, when a competitor copies your message. You know you're doing something right, but then again, what do you do when your competitor copies you?
This was interesting. Well, a lot of debate. I was furious, honestly. First, I was saying, how can you even do that? I mean, as a CMO, I would be so ashamed from taking somebody else's tagline. I just have my pride, right? So I didn't understand why people would do that. But then I was talking to my team who has been in this category for a while, and they were saying, oh, Juliette, it happened to us so many times. It just happened to be more visible because we're doing much more marketing around it now. So I was really, I really wanted to be very public about it, and then say, well, I don't want to get into this type of tip for tap, and we were already on the road to develop our branding. And then I really thought about it. I said, well, it doesn't really matter that somebody takes it, because the reality is that unless they do the work that we've done, unless they go back to the core of their company, to their essence, to who they are, a tagline that they just decide to appropriate themselves will not resonate. And actually that didn't work that as well for them, I think, as it did for us, because it was something that they didn't really come up with from a process of deep thinking and deep brainstorming with executive. It was somebody, that just snapped it thinking that tagline sounds so cool, let's just use it.
I love that. And I want to I'm going to dwell on that just a second before we take another break. That is so interesting. And to me, the fact that you guys recognized, it's a moment of where, sure, at first your anger, but then that acceptance and recognition that branding is not a superficial thing. It requires an organization. And for it to work, it's, in some ways, it's like an aircraft carrier turning. It takes some time, and it has to really be planned out, and it has to be deep rooted in some truths about the company that are, essentially unique. And I like to talk about this for a second, which is, there is a difference between being better and being unique. I can never tell the difference. I can't tell you which is better, Ethan Allen or IKEA, but I can tell you they're both unique in their worlds. And that's the important thing for you to be thinking about, you listeners out there. When we talk about branding, being better is nice. Being different and unique is really special. And being different and unique is fundamental to employees and the what they say and how they talk about it. So I've gone on a little bit long, but I think it was a brave move to either not sue them, to let them sort of keep going, and in the recognition that it was skin deep, and therefore they couldn't really make hay with it. They couldn't do anything with it.
I think that you need to move on, right? You cannot, I don't believe you win a market through suing. Competition is good to just create a market. But, what we wanted was to be able to we were very close to move on to our new branding, which is the power of identity, or identity is power. And it kind of felt like it was an evolution of the identity is everything for us. And it almost ingrained that we owned it and we were moving further. So, we were reassured with that, and we focused on ourselves. I worked for a CEO in my previous company who, when we were getting really, really aggravated by competitors, will say, it never helps. You have to look at what they do and get better, but you always have to focus on yourself and just continue applying. And that sticked with me. And in that case, I think, along with my team, calming me down, help us, stay the course of the branding exercise we're doing. And you're right, this branding exercise was long. It was 10 months for us, and we're, a small company, but we decided to do it well rather than fast. And it took that time to really get the essence of the company. And I think right now, everybody really internally and externally feel that this is what SailPoint is all about.
Oh my gosh, so many things in that I want to comment on, but we need to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to just wrap up and really talk about some of the lessons that you've learned as a result of this new campaign and new positioning for the brand. So we'll be right back. Hey, it's Drew. I have a question for you, the audience. How good is your content? We all believe in content marketing, but is your content good enough for you to share it with the CEO and want him to share it with his peers? Is it good enough for your salespeople to share with their prospects? Heck, is it good enough for you to share it with your mom? If the answer to all of those questions was no, well, it's not that good, and you're also celebrating things like National Donut Day, it's probably a good idea to do a content audit. And I know just the person to help you out with that. Text content audit to 917-679-8852. That's actually my cell phone. And we can talk about how to get your content to be world class and do all the things that you know it should be able to do. So you can text content audit to 917-679-8852. And let's figure out together how to get your content to cut through. Okay, we're back, and my guest today is Juliette Rizkallah, CMO of SailPoint, and we've been talking about rebranding and the importance of getting employees involved. One of the things that Juliette just said that I thought was so interesting was it took them 10 months to get it right, and I really think that's critical. When you, the new CMO, take on your job, or you, new marketer, take on your job, there's tremendous pressure on you to fill the pipeline, to do all these things that will have short-term impact on the business. But the reality is, if you do your branding and you shortcut it and you do it in 3 months, that foundation will not be solid, and you'll end up having to change campaigns, and you will have actually lost 10 months as opposed to building that campaign and, really making sure that it's rock solid, getting it right. Because if you get it right, really right, it can last for years, and it should last for years. This is not something that you should be doing every 3, 4, 5 years if you do it right. So we were talking about the need to, build a very solid foundation. And I'm wondering if there was a lot of pressure on you from sales, in the short term while you're doing all this planning. It's like, where are my MQLs?
So a few things were happening. I just had started SailPoint, and within 2 months, I played with the idea, or I should say, I shared the ideas with the executive that we needed a new branding, but I didn't go with the word branding. I said we need to work on messaging. We need to have something easier. So that is something that very quickly everybody rallied on. But as you said, there's always pressure, and I knew I wanted to do this right, and it was going to take a long time, which is why we launched the Identity is Everything campaign as a transition campaign. And this was done, just by brainstorming fairly fast with the help of an agency, but this was not the true branding exercise. But that helped us having the campaign going, and did actually a few tactical things that help us tremendously with all the MQLs and so forth. At the same time, one thing that you may not know is that we were building our demand generation team and our demand generation program. So before having even the branding in place, we started seeing an uptick of MQLs in a very, very significant way. So that relieved totally the pressure, where internally sales and executive were really happy to see the results of marketing. and give the team the time to develop the branding initiative at its own pace.
Very smart. So get some quick wins, get some credibility, do some things that weren't being done to allow you to buy the time to really do it right. That makes a lot of sense, and I suspect that other CMOs are nodding their heads. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you faced in sort of bringing this new program to fruition?
I have to say, we didn't have any challenge per se, right? And I think maybe because it was not my first time doing it, and I had a lot of obstacles before that I made sure to remove. The first things was, even before starting talking to agencies, I wanted to make sure that the CEO and the president and a few other key top execs were on board with it. And I explained, I didn't say I want to do a rebranding. I explained exactly what we wanted to do. And their buy-in and their excitement was there. We also talked to the board about it. They were kind of interested to see what was going to happen with that, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we made sure top executives were involved in a lot of the brainstorming. Obviously, we're a smaller company. We have co-founders that are still president and CEO. So they were very interested in being involved, and they were key to the development of this branding that was really explaining why they built that company. So I would say it was not that hard. And maybe what I omitted to say is that both of them came from marketing, product marketing, but they came from marketing. And at the same time, yes, it's very interesting. And at the same time, when I interviewed with our top sales executive, he is absolutely convinced that he will be able to meet his numbers if he has a strong marketing organization. And, this is why also I wanted to join SailPoint, is because I could see a management team that believes in marketing, that partner with marketing, that doesn't see marketing as a cost center, but as somebody that will actually add to the top line.
That makes you in a wonderful but often rare situation. Unfortunately, I talk to as you know, I talk to a lot of CMOs, and not all of them have CEOs or other execs that share that perspective, particularly in B2B. And it's kind of weird. I don't quite get it, because they can all point to brands that they know and marketing campaigns that they love, but yet they still think of it as this sort of sales driven, that's the only way to go. And those are the folks where we're going to hire another salesperson instead of add to the budget, which seems to be more common in B2B, unfortunately.
It is true. And I had my share of those companies, which is why I think I chose very carefully when I decided to do something new, that I chose my company and I chose SailPoint. It was clear to me that I would have the full support to execute a vision that I had for the company from all those executives.
All right. So before we wrap up, is there sort of any lessons learned that you could share with fellow marketers that really helped, that sort of really rung true for you as you proceeded with your program?
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about branding, but during that time we were developing, as I mentioned briefly, a lot of demand generation. I see, marketing in B2B as being very balanced. If you look at our industry, you will see probably a lot of focus on demand generation and less of branding, because of all the pressures that you mentioned before, but also because I think the CMOs come from that world versus the corporate marketing world or the advertising world. And everybody, as a CMO, comes with their specific set of skills that they will pull and rely on. But for me, as a CMO, I need to understand my strong skill set and complement with my team the skill set where I may not be as strong, because the objective is to have a very, very comprehensive program. Branding is great, but if you don't have the great demand generation program that can leverage that branding, in the end, your branding results won't show. Demand generation is great, but you can power boost them with a strong branding. And if you develop those in concert, and you understand, the steps that you need to take first in order to do that, I think you can build super interesting program. And the last thing I will say is that, I'm not a marketer by training. I was a business consultant for 7 years before I got into iTech. And for me, analytics and measurement and metrics are kind of part of my DNA. So I think it's extremely critical for marketers today to be credible in a world of B2B, especially in front of those sales-oriented folks and top executives that only see top and bottom line, to have a lot of metrics. And now there's a lot of tools in our arsenal to help us use those analytics and those metrics and to measure everything we do. And the more we do that, the more credibility we can build into the organization.
That's a great place for us to wrap up. And I'm sort of going to summarize here, as I often do on my show, which is sort of to think about this in under 3 to 4 dimensions. One is courage. Have the courage to be unique as a brand, but also the courage as a CMO to say, all right, we need to rebrand and we need to take the time to get it right. Which, you talked about it taking 10 months. That I see as sort of the average. It's anywhere between 9 and 12 months for rebranding. The artful, this is the second part of the CMO quadrant, if you will. Artfulness came through here loud and clear for me, both getting your CEO and board members and folks involved and part of it, and then artfully getting it out to the employees. This critical importance of getting employees to buy in is all under the artfulness area. Then third is thoughtful. When you're doing this message, what was interesting to me, and it came through, is you really were thinking about how to reframe your business in a way that customers would get it and go, oh my God, yeah, this is about individual identity. I hadn't really thought of it that way. I've been thinking about cybersecurity as just sort of this attack, and it's about firewalls and protection. But it really comes down to something very different, which is it's about protecting employees. And then lastly, which you presented lastly, was the S for scientific, and of course, making sure that you have metrics. All the cat part fails if you don't have the science. So, Juliette, I really want to thank you for being on Renegade Thinkers Unite. I think it was just a wonderful discussion. So thanks for being on the show.
Of course. My pleasure.
So finally, if you've enjoyed this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast channel. We're on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Overcast, or Libsyn Direct. And feel free to write a review. That'd be awesome while you're there, or better yet, share it with a deserving friend. And so until next time, keep those Renegade Thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.